We got a massive preview extravaganza for you today. We got Justin Spears talking Arizona versus Cincinnati, and then me and Damon are going to break down everything and anything related to this Arizona versus UCLA matchup. Let's get it going. It's the AZ Wildcats podcast.
Welcome on into the AZ Wildcats podcast, coming to you live from Studio K, presented by our friends over at Circle K. I am, of course, Damon Farrell. That's Kevin Thomas. We are the AZ Wildcats pod, and we got a lot to break down today, including an Arizona football preview, potentially the toughest game of the season for the Wildcats. It is, if you listen to head coach Brent Brennan. And then, we got to talk a little bit of Arizona versus UCLA. And by a little bit of, I mean a lot of it of Arizona versus UCLA on the back end of the show. But we got Justin Spears on in the beginning portion of this hour to talk about this game. Kevin can't wait for it. Fired up to talk about some Arizona Wildcats. Football and basketball, the best time of the year for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, this next, 4 or 5 weeks here for Arizona fans could be really special if the football team can get their wits about them. Heading to Cincinnati in the early slate is going to be a really tough matchup, and that's why we got our guy Justin Spears to help us preview it. But yeah, like you said, pumped for this game. It means a lot if Arizona is able to get it done, and it means a whole hell of a lot if they're able to get it done against UCLA on Friday night as well. So let's go ahead, without further ado, get our guy Justin Spears in here. Spears, how we feeling today?
Feeling good, man. Excited to get out to the land of Skyline Chili, man. I'm excited to try out some Skyline Chili. I don't know how familiar you guys are with Skyline Chili, but fellas, I'm going to get freaky in Cincinnati. I'm about to have a 5-way in Cincy. And get your mind out of the gutter, guys, because they have 3-way, 4-way, or 5-way. I'm going all in on the 5-way Skyline Chili, man. I'm super excited, man. If you think about this matchup, it's like you got Red Line versus Skyline.
Ooh.
You've got Bearcats versus Bear Down, and you have two teams that are pretty damn good. You have a Cincinnati team that is right there in the conversation for the Big 12 championship. And then you have Arizona that is just a few plays away from being in a similar situation like Cincinnati. Mathematically, Arizona's not out of the Big 12 championship conversation, but let's be real here. They're not going to get to the Big 12 title game. But this Arizona team, they want to make sure that they are sprinting to the finish line. Yeah, bowl eligibility is cool for this team, but if you really want to live the red line, if you really want to go 100% of the time, then right now with 3 games remaining in the regular season, you got to go out there and really show that, you're not just content with getting to bowl eligibility. You want to make sure that you're getting through that finish line on a good note.
Yeah, and Brennan alluded to that in the post-game presser after the Kansas victory about, they're going to celebrate this, but this is not the mountaintop. This is not the end goal. There's a lot more season left. There's a lot more games to potentially win. And obviously, this is something Damon and I have spoken about, off air when talking about this game, is that there are some factors going against Arizona in this one. The early kickoff, the road environment of it all. How big of a factor do you place on that in this game? Arizona taking it on the road in an early game. Do you think that's going to be a factor in this matchup, or are you kind of breaking it down in more generic terms?
No, I think it really shouldn't be a factor because Arizona's done this before. They went out on the road and played against Houston. That was an early kickoff. That kicked off at 9 a.m. Tucson time, right? So it's not like they are completely foreign to this. And I just find it very funny that Arizona football, they came up with this mantra called Own the Night, where they're talking about we understand that we have all these late kickoffs and, but we're going to lean into that just for the season where they have the Own the Night mantra to have a bunch of day games and a bunch of earlier games than we've seen in the past. But you know what? That's what is so unique about the Big 12 is that, this is a league that has 16 teams that spans across 4 different time zones. And, Cincinnati, we don't really talk about those guys. UCF, we don't really talk about those guys. West Virginia, right? Like these are the teams that are on the other side of the country that are just kind of off doing their own thing. But, yeah, I think that the early kickoff shouldn't have an impact on this game. And then as far as, the weather goes, if this game was being played, say, earlier this week, Arizona might be in a world of trouble just because, Cincinnati did get some snow this week, and it was very, very cold. But, man, I'm looking at the forecast for Saturday, and it's looking like it's going to be very similar to Colorado where, it's going to be a little chilly out. You're going to need your jackets, but it's not going to be anything that's going to really impact the game. So I think Arizona lucked out weather-wise, and but they didn't luck out opponent-wise because this Cincinnati team is so good. I mean, defensively, they're in the lower third of the Big 12. So, I mean, the defense isn't really anything to write home about, but they do have a really good linebacker by the name of Jake Golday, who transferred in after a stint at Central Arkansas, kind of a little bit of like that Riley Wilson factor where he first started his college career as a defensive end and was really good, and then transfers to the bigger level and has become a really productive linebacker getting into the backfield. And then I'm really excited to watch the Godfather, Dante Corleone, up there up front, where if you look at his stats, really not anything to write home about, but he's also like 6'1", 335 pounds. He's the nose tackle in Cincinnati's 3-3-5 defense that just clogs up lanes and clogs up, or he occupies a lot of blockers. Like you're going to have at least 2 offensive linemen on him at all times. He is that big time, and he is an all Big 12 selection. He was a first-teamer last year. This year expected, to be one of the top interior defensive linemen, or he already is this year. So he's going to be a challenge for Arizona's offensive line. But you look at what they do offensively, guys, and, I mean, this team, they've only given up a couple of sacks this year. Brennan Sorsby has only thrown 2 interceptions this year. And I agree with Danny Gonzalez, Arizona's defensive coordinator. He said that Brennan Sorsby, their quarterback, is like a more athletic version of Rocco Becht. And I think that's a really good comparison. And how familiar are you guys with Pokemon?
Somewhat.
Okay. So you guys know the difference between Charmander and Charizard, right?
Of course.
Yes.
So Bear Bachmeier from BYU is Charmander. Brennan Sorsby is Charizard. He is the older, more polished version of Bear Bachmeier. And you saw what Bear Bachmeier did against Arizona. As far as running the football, he had his way against the Wildcats, especially late in that game. And if you're Brennan Sorsby and if you're Cincinnati, you have to be licking your chops because, you look at what Bear Bachmeier did. You look at what Connor Wegman did against Arizona with QB power. I think Brennan Sorsby is like a combination of Connor Wegman and Bear Bachmeier. I mean, when Brent Brennan and Danny Gonzalez say that Brennan Sorsby is the best quarterback that they have faced this year, I believe them. I mean, 21 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's also had the most rushing yards this year than he's ever had in his collegiate career. And so quarterback power is going to be something that Arizona needs to stop. They are coming off a bye week. So they've spent the last 2 weeks preparing for Arizona, and Brennan Sorsby is all of 6'3", 235 pounds. And this guy's a tight end playing quarterback, and he's a pretty damn good quarterback at that. So they're going to have their hands full this week. Brennan Sorsby is a hell of a quarterback. I really love that 1-2 punch combo they have in the backfield, and Tawi Walker and Evan Pryor, even though they are banged up. Evan Pryor was on that availability report yesterday as questionable. It should be interesting to see what he does. But, Tawi Walker is a guy that is also dealing with an ankle injury, but he's had a couple of weeks to prepare for this game. So I expect both of those guys to play. And when you add that in with Brennan Sorsby, I mean, all 3 of those guys have or they are top 20 in the Big 12 in rushing. So Cincy has 3 guys in the top 20 in rushing yards, and then their guy on the outside, and Cyrus Allen at wide receiver, he leads the Big 12 in touchdown catches this year. And he's a transfer from Texas A&M, is a guy that's a really good player. They also have Joe Royer as well, the transfer from Ohio State, who was an all Big 12 selection last year. And, I mean, I can just go on and on about this offense. I mean, I didn't even mention anything about the offensive line, who, like I said earlier, didn't even they have only given up 2 sacks this year. So this is maybe the best offense that Arizona's defense has faced this year. But, hey, guess what? Arizona's got a top 15 defense. So that'll be a very fun matchup. I can't wait for Saturday.
Yeah, if you listen to Brent Brennan talk about this Cincinnati team, as well as, kind of that what you just outlaid to us, it sounds like this could potentially be the toughest game of the season for Arizona, all things considered, all factors considered, right? Like, BYU is obviously a great team in their own right, but Arizona's at home in that game. They don't have to travel across the country. Do you think that this is the toughest test this season for Arizona?
Yeah, because I think that BYU is probably a better team, but then again, they played against BYU at home, right? Cincinnati is, maybe at the same level as BYU. I still give the Cougars an advantage in that game, but when you're on the road playing against a team that does not lose at home this year, I mean, they've got a really good home record this year, and this is also a team that has lost to Nebraska in Arrowhead at Kansas City. And then they also just lost to Utah in Rice-Eccles Stadium. So, and that's hard to beat Utah at Rice-Eccles Stadium, especially at nighttime, right? So those are the 2 losses for Cincinnati this year. They haven't really beaten a strong opponent, right? You could sit there and say, like, oh, well, they lost to really good teams. Well, they also haven't really beaten anybody that you're like, ooh, that's a really good win for Cincinnati. And, for the Bearcats, they've got their eyes on the Big 12 championship game. Well, who do they got next week? They've got BYU. But in order to get to, that big-time matchup and have it to where it's like, hey, winner between BYU and Cincinnati, in order for, the winner of that game to go on and face Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship, you got to take care of business against Arizona. And Scott Satterfield, their head coach, I mean, he knows just how good Arizona is, and he has told his team, like, hey, guys, I understand next week's a big week, but, like, Arizona's just a few plays away from being 8-1. This is a really good team. Look at what they did on the road against Colorado, and I'm sure that the Wildcats would love to play spoiler in some way and ruin, Cincinnati's Big 12 championship, maybe even college football playoff hopes. Right, that's where the Bearcats are at right now, and I feel like Cincinnati, they're going to be locked into this game because they're coming off a bye. They've, spent the last 2 weeks preparing for Arizona, and then they've got that one next week against BYU, and it's going to be a big time test. I don't know if it's going to be a low scoring game or a high scoring game. I just know that whoever wins this game, it's going to be a one-possession game. I really have a hard time imagining Cincinnati just coming out and clobbering Arizona in this matchup.
Yeah, and when we talk about the potential of Arizona playing spoiler in this for Cincinnati, what do you think they're going to have to do specifically against Brendan Sorsby to really stop him? Because we talked about the quarterback power being an issue, but he's also been getting it done in a variety of other ways this year for Cincinnati, whether it be with his arm or honestly at times, I don't know if you've gotten the same vibe from watching Cincinnati this year, with his confidence as well. He's kind of the leader of that team in an emotional sense as well. What is Arizona's defense going to have to do to make sure that they're in this one? And I do want to talk about the offense with you after this one as well, because it's going to be an interesting matchup between Noah Fifita and that Cincinnati defense.
Yeah, I think in order to get to Sorsby, you got to be really creative with your blitzes. And Danny Gonzalez said it in his press conference this week that the thing that makes Cincinnati's offense go, one, they have really good offensive linemen. They're really good at identifying blitzes and where they're coming from. And then Brendan Sorsby is also really good at picking up the blitzes. Danny Gonzalez said that Sorsby's got like eyes on the back of his head, and when he's turning the corner and you think that he's going to beat you with his legs, his eyes are always downfield looking for that second or third option. he doesn't take off to run unless he's like, okay, absolute last resort. I know I can be effective with my legs. He is always going to look to beat you with his arm. And that's what makes Brendan Sorsby an incredible player. And I've seen some mock drafts have him ascending as a player that could be talked about maybe as a first-round pick, maybe as a second-rounder. He's got another year left of eligibility. I would love to see Brendan Sorsby come back because I think Cincinnati, if they can, do some damage in the transfer portal, and if they can keep Sorsby, look out for the Bearcats to maybe make a CFP run next year. I think they could have a legit team next year. But Sorsby is the kind of player where, he is so just savvy. Like, he has such a good feel for the game, and he's going to beat you in a variety of ways. Now, for Arizona, how do you beat a guy like that? That's just very slithery. I think that's the right term to use him. Is he's very slithery. He can get out of the pocket and he can avoid the pressure. And I think, for Arizona, how can you get creative with your blitzes? Because you don't have a guy like Trey Smith, who is your best pass rusher. He's out for the season with a torn labrum, Danny Gonzalez said earlier this week. And then, you're also dealing with some other injuries as well. Tia Savea is going to be out for this game. So now you're going to expect more Leroy Palu. Maybe we'll see some Julian Savianaya or maybe some more Zach Siulepa. But, do you utilize a guy like Chase Kennedy and Riley Wilson? Those two guys I think can be really effective as far as getting to the quarterback. And we've seen them this year, have that role. And then also, Traden Stukes has had moments where he's gotten in the backfield. And, we've seen other defensive backs get in the mix as well. This is a very aggressive Danny Gonzalez defense. I love the amoeba defense that they added last week where all of the guys were just standing up. Like, nobody was up on the line of scrimmage, and you had a bunch of dudes that were just lined up at linebacker, and that created a lot of confusion. I'm wondering if we're going to see more of that, to where, you're not going to have the big edge rushers getting to the quarterback, but you just throw out some craziness. That's just going to be very confusing, and then maybe you're able to create some sort of pressure on Brendan Sorsby.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about Brendan Sorsby and kind of the threat that he brings to the table. I want to talk more about Arizona's signal caller on the other end and just kind of this quarterback battle. We'll do that right after the break here, though, on the AZ Wildcats podcast. Don't go anywhere.
And I got to talk to you about our friends over at Pure Edibles. Because if it's one thing I was doing last night on my night off, was partaking in some Pure Edibles. And now my favorite part about it is when I went digging through my little goodie bag at home of all my different Pure Edibles, I'm thinking, what type of vibe do I want to partake in right now? Do I want to uplift? Do I want a little bit of sleepy time boost? I went ahead and picked the uplift last night because I was going ahead and watch a nice little funny movie after, and that is exactly what I did. And Pure Edibles helped me have a couple more laughs during that movie, as it was founded right here in the Freedom State of Arizona, and is available in over 130 dispensaries statewide. And it's not just your regular everyday gummies. This is a full-fledged candy company offering you a wide variety of gummy goodness, whether it be, chews, which is kind of like a, just a chewy kind of candy. Think like a caramel. If you like hard candies, if you're into that sort of thing, they have hard candies as well. My favorite, though, is their Kicks, which is kind of like their Starburst. It's a very, very good adult version of a Starburst, I'll say. And so who says happy hour has to end with our friends over at Pure Edibles? Go find some Pure Edibles products from one of the over 130 dispensaries that do dispense them.
Shout out Pure Edibles, but Kevin, I need to tell you guys about our friends over at Circle K as well. We love Circle K. They are America's thirst stop, and we do have a fuel day in T-minus 7 days from today. 1 week from today, next Thursday, November 20th, Inner Circle members are going to be able to go to the pump and get 40 cents off per gallon. That's Thursday, November 20th, 1 week from today. If you haven't become an Inner Circle Rewards member yet, sign up now, get in on that 40 cents off per gallon. I believe you can stack that with your introductory offer, Kevin, of 25 cents off per gallon and get yourself 65 cents off per gallon on your first fill up there at the tank, and then 4 fill-ups after that, because it's 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups at the tank and then after that it's 3 cents off per gallon every single time that you fill up until you reach premium status like me and Kevin, and you get 5 cents off per gallon. The savings are right there. It's so easy to sign up. It's for free. It takes 2 minutes. Download a free app, put an email and a password in, and you're done. Inner Circle Rewards membership is that easy, and the savings are right there in front of you. 79-cent Polar Pops, 99-cent Frosters, and of course, 30 cents off per gallon when you buy 3 12 to 16 ounce Celsiuses. They have all sorts of deals like that, Celsius, going on Circle K meal deals as well. Check out the Inner Circle Rewards membership offers that they have to offer for you today with the free Inner Circle app, Circle K app. Download it, guys. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for details.
And we got our guy Justin back with us. I did want to shout out Bill's comment here in the chat in response to our Pure Edibles read that says, better send Mick Cronin some edibles for Friday night. We're going to get to that later in this pod. But Damon, I believe we were talking to Justin about what Noah Fifita can get done in this one.
Yeah, so we saw Noah Fifita, tie the all-time Arizona passing touchdown record in our last game. And he's now up there with the triumvirate of Nick Foles, Willie Tuitama, Noah Fifita right there at the top. And I would safe to assume that he'll reach past that threshold in this game versus Cincinnati, needing just one passing touchdown. But Justin, if Arizona's to be successful, we know how good Brendan Sorsby is. We know how good the Cincinnati offense is and how good they are at home in particular. Is Arizona going to need to match that? Is Arizona going to need to get into a shootout with Cincinnati in order to get the job done in this one?
I wouldn't necessarily say, you got to get into a shootout, but I mean, I think setting the tone on the road, if you could, get out and score a touchdown or two on your first couple of drives and really make this, a tone setter in the first quarter, then I think that'll be a really strong start for Arizona and, something that they could lean on. But I think that really the key for Arizona in this game is, look at the other kind of defenses that are very similar to what Cincinnati does, because Cincy does a 3-3-5 defense. Right. So, let's look at the most recent examples of the 3-3-5 defense that Arizona has played against. Iowa State, right? That's the one that Seth Dagey has compared Cincinnati to. But Iowa State, even though they had some injuries in the secondary, I still think that their defensive backs were better than what we saw out of Cincinnati. Cincinnati has really good DBs, but really the heart and soul of their defense is Dante Corleone at nose tackle, and then they also have some really good linebackers as well. So a little bit different compared to Iowa State. But, I look at the most recent 3-3-5 defense that Arizona played, and maybe this is the play here. So Houston ran a 3-3-5 defense, and if you guys remember that game, Noah Fifita completed 24 of 26 passes, right? Set the completion record by a Wildcat in a single game with at least 20 attempts. And it was just a lot of dink and dunks and short passes to wide receivers that had a ton of yak. There was a lot of yak in that game from guys like Trey Spivey and Chris Hudson and Luke Weissong and some other wide receivers as well. So going up against a similar style defense, I think maybe we could see Arizona replicate a little bit of something that we saw from the Houston game, where it's Noah Fifita getting the ball out quick, getting the ball into his receivers so they can make plays in the open space. And I also think, that could be the move for Arizona, because, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Colorado in a sense, where, going into that game against Colorado, remember the game prior, Deion Sanders said, well, they got the blueprint. Just blitz the hell out of them. Bring the pressure. Arizona gave up 17 pressures last week in that game against Kansas. KU, they really brought the house, and they really brought pressure to Noah Fifita, and that's the playbook right there. If you want to, affect Arizona's offense, bring the house and bring, the linebackers and the defensive backs and just put pressure on Noah Fifita. Well, if Cincinnati's going to do that, what does Arizona need to do? They need to get the ball out quickly and make sure that Noah Fifita is protected in this game. So I think that's the plan for Arizona. Just my opinion. It's not sourced by any means. I just think that, based off of what we saw the last time they played against a 3-3-5 defense, those short passes, getting the ball into the playmakers' hands. I think that's the key. And I also think, Arizona needs to establish the run game as well. Arizona didn't establish the run game against Kansas really until late in that game. And then we saw some runs by Noah Fifita, and then, of course, those big runs by Quincy Craig. If Arizona can be consistent with that run game and then get into those third and short situations, I think that's the plan for Arizona.
There's been some talk in regards to the balance of the offense. Arizona may be getting a little bit too pass happy. Your colleague, Michael Lev at the Daily Star, you recently wrote about that balance. What do you see from Arizona's run game and that balance that's been so talked about within Seth Daigie's play calling recently?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes other teams are just putting 8 guys in the box, and then you just got to do or react to what the defense has given you. And that's why Arizona has been in moments where they've got a little pass happy. Also, Arizona hasn't really had a healthy stable of running backs until just a couple of weeks ago. So now that, Quincy Craig, I mean, he was banged up earlier this year. I mean, he played through all these games, but he wasn't quite 100%. Kedrick Reesano missed a few games as well. With those guys now healthy, pretty much 100%, and Ismail Mahdi continuing to ascend. Like, Ismail Mahdi's had really a quiet, productive last couple of weeks. Like, if you look at, I forgot how many yards per carry, but he's averaging like 11 yards per carry in the last 2 games. So Ismail Mahdi, I think, has been a solid running back lately for Arizona. And I think now all of those guys are starting to hit that 5th gear at the most important time of the season. Usually this is the time of year where you're starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel for running backs just because it's late in the season. Running backs, they get hit a lot, and they don't have as much tread on the tires as other people to sustain a long season. But all of those guys are healthy, which is a stark contrast to last year when Rayshon Speedy Luke decided to redshirt, and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt had eligibility issues and had to miss, the remainder of the 11 games. And, so many other guys as well, they were banged up. Like Quali Conley was the only running back that Arizona could really lean on in that sense. And now Arizona has 3 legitimate running backs that they can rely on. And I think, we can see those guys get really effective this week in the passing game because, I mentioned, getting the ball out quickly and doing the dink and dunks to, the wide receivers. Well, the running backs and the tight ends, those guys are also going to have a major impact in the passing game as well. And then in blocking too, the tight ends, Cameron Barmore and Sam Olsen, they've done a much better job lately when it comes to blocking. So I know people are going to sit there and be like, well, where's the run game? Why isn't that getting going? This is going to be a game where I think Arizona's rushing attack gets going. And even if, it's not up to the standards of Arizona fans, I still think that those guys are going to make the plays that are ultimately going to give Arizona the chance to win.
Yeah, and also, we talk about the importance of this matchup for not only Arizona, but for Cincinnati. Can we kind of talk about the overall vibes of the program right now? I feel like it's kind of night and day from where it was after the BYU loss, for example, where now that you've gained bowl eligibility and everything seems like it's in front of you again as an Arizona Wildcat fan, how big is this game if Arizona is to win it for the outlook on the end of the season for the Wildcats?
It's huge, just because now you're going into senior day where you're playing against a Baylor team that is still fighting for bowl eligibility. They're sitting at 5 wins right now. And I would imagine that you're going to get a desperate Baylor team, right? So, next week, if Baylor loses this week, then, they got to fight for bowl eligibility in the second to last game of the season against Arizona in Tucson. And if they can, somehow win these next 2 games, boy, that's going to make that Territorial Cup game very, very interesting. And how cool is that as well? To think about, like, in a few weeks, we're going to see the Territorial Cup, and both teams are going to a bowl game. In recent years, it's always one team is 3 wins, one team has 4 wins, and the other one's having a really good year, right? It's never like both teams are having really good years and they're meeting at the end of the regular season. So I'm excited for this Territorial Cup. I know that's a few weeks away, but I mean, just the fact that both teams are bowl eligible right now before that game, I think is so cool. But, Arizona, they want to make sure that they're not just like, okay, bowl eligibility, yay, let's just fast forward to El Paso where we're playing in the Sun Bowl. No, they're like, hey, let's maximize this. Let's see the best bowl game that we could possibly go to. And, I think that, the red line mantra, like I said earlier in this podcast, if Arizona is all about the red line mantra, well, we're about to find out on the road against Cincinnati in the next 2 games after that.
Yeah, in regards to Baylor and how difficult that game could potentially be, on their schedule, they have Utah at home, Arizona on the road, and then Houston at home. I know Houston has kind of been on the trending down portion a little bit, but if you're Baylor, you might look at that Arizona game as your best opportunity for bowl eligibility. That's a tough slate of 3 games, needing one of them to get the job done there. So that makes that game all the more interesting as well. But it does feel as though the vibes of this program are definitely on the up and up. Has it been since 2017, Justin, that both ASU and U of A have made a bowl game? Is that right?
Oh man, yeah, I think so. Yeah, since 2017, the infamous Rich Rodriguez
one bowl game, and ASU was not good that year. And then someone made 0, and I believe the last Rich Rod year was the last bowl game. Todd Graham, ASU went 7-6 as well. So yeah, man, interesting stuff.
And speaking of Rich Rodriguez, he's making his return to Tempe this week when they play against the Sun Devils.
Come on.
And I'm sure you guys have seen it. I always think of that game in 2017 when Khalil Tate leaves the game with an injury and then comes back in, and Rich Rodriguez gave us this post-game gem. And shout out to my colleague Michael Lev for keeping his composure. He asked Rich Rodriguez, what happened to Khalil? He's like, he got hurt. And then he's like, well, I mean, he came back into the game, and was it like more like a questionable thing? And then Rich Rod was like, let's see. He got hurt. Couldn't go. So the other guy went. Hello, like how dare you ask me that? And then the third quarter really got out of hand for Arizona. And Mike Ostie, who covers West Virginia, he pointed this out on Twitter. He was like, you can see like the devil and the angel on Rich Rod's shoulder. He's like, just go in on these kids, just scold them. But then you also have to understand, like, they're trying really hard and they're kids. He was like, oh, heck, just play football. I mean, heck, we're a Division I team and we can't punt. We can't catch the snap and punt the ball. I mean, it's unfathomable. I mean, kids are trying. It's just remarkable. I mean, I love Rich Rodriguez, man. He's an absolute gem. I think Arizona got a good one in Brent Brennan, but, man, I see those clips and I'm like, man, take me back to the good old days of Rich Rodriguez. Whether it's a win or a loss, you knew that you were in for a gem of a post-game press conference.
I have no idea how Michael Lev continued to ask a follow-up question after that and remain professional, because I know in my very limited experience interviewing people that whenever I get pushback on a question from somebody, I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. So that's pretty impressive stuff there from Michael Lev. And I will say my experience interviewing Rich Rodriguez at the Big 12 Media Day over the summer was much, much different than that. He was not on ready to jump at people's necks after a brutal rivalry loss to ASU, in which that one did really suck. Khalil Tate stays healthy, you probably win that. You punt, you have a good punt unit, you probably win that one, and instead you're punting at like 22 yards per clip in that game, and just a total and complete disaster. But maybe this year's different. We'll find out. And Justin Spears will be along with us the entire way, helping us cover this team and hopefully getting freaky in Ohio. You know what, Justin? I was going to say this on the way out. I've heard that the locals, the people that are boots on the ground in Cincinnati, Gold Star folks. Skyline might have the the hearts of the national media. They might have the big financial backing, but I heard the people are at Gold Star. So just something to think about in terms of your chili needs out there in Ohio. But appreciate you, Justin, as always. And hopefully we get the W and we can be talking about an Arizona victory versus Cincinnati next week.
Man, I cannot wait. Let's get freaky in Cincinnati, guys. I'm having a 5-way in Cincy. Let's go.
That is, of course, Justin Spears. You can give him a follow at Justin E Sports on Twitter. Of course, great written work at Tucson.com for the Arizona Daily Star. Make sure that you guys subscribe to that. And he is live every single weekday morning on Spears and Ali from 7 to 9 a.m. Arizona time. Kevin, we're going to talk a little bit more about that interview, maybe break it down real quick. Then we're going to transition into Arizona basketball versus UCLA. We'll do that right after the break here on the AZ Wildcats pod.
It's Rally House, everybody. Gotcha. If you thought I was going to warm into that one, I didn't. It's Rally House, your one-stop shop for all your favorite local Arizona team gear. Whether it's Wildcats, whether it's Arizona Cardinals, whether it's Arizona Diamondbacks, Rally House has your back. And you can shop, if you're up here by me and Damon, you can shop in Tempe, Mesa, or Glendale today at any of their physical locations. But if you're not located up here, make sure to find your local Rally House location and shop their entire product assortment online. 39 plus pages of Arizona Wildcats merch and memorabilia at www.rallyhouse.com today. Because it truly is. It's like everything from jerseys to dog collars. Rally House has your back. So rep your team in any way you know how at Rally House.
Shout out Rally House. Excited to do some Rally House things right here in the near future for the Territorial Cup. Kevin and I can't wait to show you what we got going on. As well as I want to talk to you guys about my friends over at Arizona Lottery, because 'tis the season for giving, Kevin. Over $80 million in cash prizes. How does that sound? I don't know if you want to get in on that. Play some holiday tickets for your chance to fill your stocking with cash. It's the perfect stocking stuffer, as they say right there in the ad read, because it really is. There's nothing like, you see some bigger presents under the tree, right? But it's the little things that you didn't see coming. Like when you reach into that stocking and you pull out 3 Arizona Lottery scratchers for a chance to win, I don't know, $1,000, $100, $20, you name it. They have all sorts of levels and scales to which that you can get involved in. And like I said, there is nothing like physically, doing the scratcher, Kevin. Like there's just something to it. It's the best way of gambling, in my opinion. I love our friends at Arizona Lottery for helping me get my fix in during the holiday season, and as well as help me spread some holiday cheer to me and my family members as well, my friends. It's an easy prize and present to give somebody, right? If you got a white elephant, like you could give them a stack of scratchers and no one's turning their nose up at that.
You know what I call that, Damon?
What do you call it?
Green elephant, because they're making some green.
Wow, that's special, Kevin. Love the play and spread the holiday cheer with holiday scratchers from Arizona Lottery. They're made for gifting. Play and gift today. Everybody get in on this Arizona Lottery madness they got going on during the holiday season.
I love it. And we love to play with Arizona Lottery. Is it time, Damon? Is it time to talk?
It is.
One of the biggest rivalry showdowns in college basketball.
First off, I just want to say, like, how's the vibe check of that Justin Spears interview? How do you feel about Arizona football? And then we'll transition real quick into basketball.
I feel really good, Damon, about Arizona football heading into this matchup. I know it's a road game. I know it's a morning road game. And I know that is not necessarily adding up to an advantage Arizona. However, I do think they're good enough if they play to a certain level to get this one done. And if they're able to get it done, as we talked about with Justin, the vibes may never have been higher under Brent Brennan if Arizona goes ahead and gets that 7th win with 2 more games in hand, not including a bowl game. So it could be a great year for Brent Brennan in Arizona at the end of it. And I'm very excited to see as we near the end of football season, Damon. How are you feeling after that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, as much as things have been on the positive and on the up and up in the Brent Brennan era, we are still lacking that premier win. We are still lacking the moment in the Brent Brennan tenure that is like you can hang your hat on and say, like, in the future, years from now, you'll look back on that and be like, wow, what a classic W that was for Arizona football. It's been a lot of taking care of business, which has been good to see because Arizona football did not do that last year. But now it's time to up the ante, right? It's time to get that big time W and really, I think, use that to capitalize on that momentum for the rest of the season. Because if Arizona wins this game, I'm feeling all of a sudden extremely confident in the final 2 games of the season. I think that this is by far the toughest game we have left. I think this is probably the most scheduled loss you probably have since the Iowa State game. Like, I think BYU was more winnable. I think Houston on the road was more winnable. Like, this one is going to be tough to get the job done in. East Coast, early kickoff. They're a very good team. They have a great quarterback who takes care of the football when it feels like, as Dick Wilson put earlier in the chat, like you're either going to need multiple turnovers or to put 35 plus points on the board to win this game. So I'm excited for it. I think there's a big opportunity for this football program in this one to use it as sort of a trampoline moment, especially moving into next year, because I think that you could use this as like a big recruiting tool if you get the W, because all of a sudden we're talking 8-4, we're talking 9-3 potentially. But yeah, it's gonna be a tough one to win as well. So I don't know if Arizona gets it done, but I am truly very excited for it, as I am excited for tomorrow's big time matchup with UCLA. Kevin and I are going to be giving you a Cam Williams pod, reaction pod to whatever Cam Williams decides after his commitment at 12:45 tomorrow, Arizona time. Then we're going to be going pregame, watch along, postgame for UCLA. That's how excited we are. We can't quit the content. We're addicted to it. But Kevin, I'm just excited to watch this UCLA game in particular because it means everything. It means everything from the Arizona perspective because of what happened last year, because of the rivalry, because of Mick Cronin and how unlikable he is, what a villain he is. Just what a game, what a time to be alive. We get to talk about it. Arizona basketball.
It's an absolute massive game, right? Arizona, top 5 ranked team. UCLA,
go.
top 15 ranked team. Honestly, this game is massive because it's a chance for Arizona to prove once again. You beat Florida night 1, got the whole nation talking about you and Koa Peat, right? And then you have 2 games in the meantime after that, Utah Tech and Northern Arizona, that you handle business. You look decent doing it. No real complaints from the fan base. However, that's not testing anything. You're not learning anything from those matchups outside of the fact that Dwayne Aristode is our sweet ceiling changer. Who knows? But it feels like this matchup is Arizona's chance to prove that the Florida game was not a fluke, that the success is replicable against real teams. And people love the Big Ten. They really do. People love Mick Cronin. People love UCLA. So I think this is another chance for Arizona to kind of put the country on notice that if you don't have them in your, Final 4 picks now, to get them in there, because if they do this in the way that I think they could do this, which is going to be convincing, a lot of people are going to slip them into their Final 4 predictions after this game because of the way they feel about UCLA. So I think there's a lot on the line here.
Oh, people love putting UCLA in their Final 4 predictions because it's their one check mark of West Coast teams that they know will make it. And to be a little bit fair to them, until Arizona proves otherwise, I kind of understand why U of A is not a more popular team to put in the Final 4. How many teams have we had over the last 2 decades that were Final 4 caliber that just didn't get the job done? Yeah. Like, in a sense, it makes a little bit of sense. Although I do think Arizona is a pretty popular Final 4 pick as of right now as well. Yeah. But UCLA, if they get this W, you're right. Like, they're going to be the darling of the West Coast for pretty much the entirety of the season, probably because of how like unimpressive I think that the Big Ten will end up being. And UCLA, if they're good enough to beat Arizona, I think they're going to be good enough to have a pretty darn good season in that conference. But man, is this one going to be a big matchup here? Arizona obviously choked away. I believe it was a 14-point lead last year against 13, UCLA.
Same difference, yeah.
Yeah, it was a substantial lead at the end of the game with about 5 minutes to play, and then everything went wrong. From Henry Vasar early shot clock 3-pointer to Trey Townsend not given full effort. It felt like on a rebound attempt to essentially just turnover after turnover. Lots of late game execution mistakes. Some things that we saw against Florida in night 1, right? And I think UCLA is going to look to capitalize on that again. How does Arizona stop that from happening, Kevin?
Yeah, I think that honestly, we talked about the UCLA matchup from last year loosely on this podcast in preview of this matchup. It doesn't really feel like that is going to play a massive role in this game, right? These teams are both so different. However, I think from a fan's perspective, from you and I's perspective, you can't help but think back to that game last year where you did blow that big lead. However, last year, you didn't have Koa Peat, didn't have Brayden Burries, didn't have Karchenkov, didn't have Aristode. ADO was not the level of player that he is now today. You can honestly say the same about Jaden Bradley. It's not like he was a low-level player last year, but he's gotten even better with the full keys to this car, so to speak. I think this is a different Arizona team. It is a different UCLA team. They add Donovan Dent, Xavier Booker, Steven Jamerson. They retain some players as well, Daly, Bilodeau, Perry. That's unheard of kind of in this era, especially a guy like Perry who's former McDonald's All-American. He could go anywhere. You have two teams that have kind of retooled, not necessarily rebuilt, but I think Arizona's tools that they brought into the shed are just simply more powerful than the power tools that UCLA has. And I think as we get into UCLA's strengths and weaknesses here, what Arizona does, or what UCLA does well, Arizona can do better, I think, this year. And I think it's going to show in the game. So strengths for the UCLA Bruins. I like that logo you used there, Damon. Defense and toughness. This is a
you
Mick
like
Cronin
UCLA
team.
logos?
Well, I'm saying I like the retro logos, if we have the option to go retro, I think we should do it more often. And I like that you did that there. Anyway, they have defense, they have toughness. This is a Mick Cronin-led team. They're going to pretty much try to make this into a street fight if possible. They're going to try to slow it down, drag it out, knock you down, and play the game that way. If Mick Cronin could choose, this game would end like 62 to, I don't know what, mid-50s. He does not want this game to be very high scoring. UCLA does, however, have experience as well. Donovan Dent, former, Mountain West Player of the Year. As Max calls me, a double agent for thinking retro logos are cool. That is okay. But they do have experience on their side. Tylr Bilodeau played for this team in years past. He also has experience going up against Arizona, being an Oregon State guy originally. He's always played well against Arizona. And then obviously the Mick Cronin factor does bleed into point number 2 of experience as well, because he's one of the most experienced coaches that you got on the West Coast right now, right? Mick Cronin's very well respected. We might make fun of him for his, lack of verticality, but he is a very good basketball coach who's forgotten more basketball than I've ever learned. And number 3, offensive rebounding. These damn UCLA Bruins can offensively rebound the ball. That is a fact. They are extremely high in offensive rebound percentage, 40%. That is 90th percentile. And they're able to get it done. It goes to that defense, goes to that toughness. And they do have decent size, not nearly the size that Arizona has, but UCLA on the boards is a tough team to get off of them, Damon. What do you see when you look at UCLA's strengths?
Yeah, you look at the offensive rebounding percentage. They are 37th in the country right now, according to KenPom. Obviously, it's early, small sample size, but you look at the D1 experience, it goes beyond just Mick Cronin. It's also their roster. They have Kevin, the 12th most D1 experience, according to KenPom, in all of college basketball right now, which puts them up there with the best of the best out of 364 teams or whatever. Like, they are truly elite when it comes to experience in their sport. But if you saw me kind of just like freaking out for a second right there on camera, had something to do with Sam's comment here, in which Sam, like, you're opening up one of the nastiest, grossest wounds you've ever seen. Like, I just got open heart surgery yesterday, and Sam walked up with his bare hands and ripped my chest cavity open like that and pulled my heart out. I bet North Texas money line plus 150 before the game with our friends at Bet365. Kevin, they were up 14 points. I almost cursed. They were up 14 points with about 3 minutes to play. They didn't score a bucket, I saw for a fact. Like 5 minutes to play, they were up like double digits.
Wow.
I mean, I thought it was in hand. I was looking at the cash out. I was going, you know what? Screw the extra. I want the extra $1.12
Let it ride.
that I'm going to get. I'm going to let it ride instead of cashing out. They gave up the tie, Kevin, and then they called timeout. They gave up the tie and they called timeout. They didn't have any. They Chris Webbered it. Technical foul. Oregon State free throws. Ball game. So we had a shot in overtime despite losing all the momentum, and they said, screw it. We're going to Chris Webber it.
That's insane.
It was the one of the worst gambling losses I've ever had in my entire life. It's unfathomable how they lost that game.
Man, I mean, my sincerest condolences, brother. That is brutal.
How do you lose like 3 minutes, Kevin, is when they hit their final free throw. Then they turn the ball over 4 times in the next 3 minutes and missed 3 front ends. How insane is that? Missing 3 front ends and having 4 turnovers. It's like you're trying to lose the game. You could have done not one of those things and you would have won. Is that the worst, like one of the worst gambling losses of all time? That's got to be worse this season thus far.
Probably is the worst beat of the season, Damon. I can't.
Oh, my God, dude. I was really just disgusted looking at. I mean, I already chalked it up as a W. I was watching UC San Diego against Fresno State, of which I also hit plus money on that money line. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, dude, I need this W. And then I got it. I was fired up because I thought North Texas had the win. I was mistaken.
Yeah.
I was mistaken, Kevin.
That's crazy.
Not to make this into my gambling
that was
podcast, but I just thought we had to talk about it for a second.
We did. And
North Texas
opened up those wounds.
He did. North Texas was 95.4% chance to win. Up 10 with 5 minutes left. They blow it. Unbelievable. I will say, I hit Montana plus 425 on the road against UNLV 2 nights ago.
You love that.
How what a W that one felt good.
That's a big old fat W is what that is.
A plus 425 pre-live money line.
I mean, that's pretty nice. That's pretty juicy.
That's pretty nice.
I love to see that.
Let's get back to UCLA U of A though.
Yeah, let's talk about some schedule stuff in this one because Pigeon is our favorite bird. Pigeon is inquiring about their schedule, saying UCLA has not played anyone yet this season. Only beat Eastern Washington by 6. Is EWU a good team?
God
Survey says they are 0-4 is Eastern Washington.
How'd their game versus Seattle go last night? Oh, they lost by
about 30.
27 points.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Good.
It's not been a very convincing start to the season for UCLA. They do escape with 3 victories and 3 attempts. So ultimately, can't knock them too much for winning games that they've been scheduled. But they have not looked good yet so far this season. Donovan Dent missed their last game against West Georgia. West Georgia in that game, by the way, put up 62 points, gave UCLA, I would say, a nice little punch in the mouth to start the game, shooting from 3. Only lost by 21 in their 34th game ever as a Division I program.
Wow.
UCLA is going to war with Eastern Washington, getting into a knockout fight with Pepperdine, and then letting a newly minted D1 team put up 62 on them in their own house. And then the vibe after the game is, and this is to a credit, the coaches and players for UCLA that understand that this is not an acceptable way to play basketball. I think that, the vibe was kind of like, look, they came in here and we were kind of playing around a little bit and they weren't playing around and we got to wake up. And that was kind of what I heard from listening to Trent Perry and Mick Cronin talk about that game. The 2 teams that are both undefeated in this matchup could not have different vibes, I feel like. More different vibes. UCLA has yet to be impressive. Arizona has the most impressive win in the country of, top 25 teams, I would say, so far, right? Koa Peat has looked like the best player in the country at times this season. Donovan Dent has already sat out his first game due to a muscle strain that they say is a muscle strain. Some people say he just is resting up for this Arizona game. It's early in the year, so I kind of honestly doubt that. It feels like that's a real muscle strain. That
Some people say he's ducking Jaden Bradley.
No, he's playing in this one. He's playing in this one.
He is. I'm just making it. Let me make jokes. I thought, jokes are dead on this podcast. My bad, Kevin.
But yeah, like I said, they struggled against Eastern Washington. Donovan Dent absolutely went off in that game, and they only win it by 6. Xavier Booker was their best player against Pepperdine. He put up 5 blocks and 15 points. He did not follow that up with an impressive performance against West Georgia, though, even though Donovan Dent was out. And yeah, UVG. That does not flow well off the tongue. West Georgia was able to get out to a hot shooting start in the first half, and it forced UCLA to kind of really lock in the halftime break. And that kind of leads me into this Arizona game. Last year, you saw a version of Arizona that was able to get up to a big double-digit lead against UCLA. They then forfeited that lead down the stretch with poor execution, poor physical toughness, and poor defensive rebounding. And offensive rebounding, I'll say. This year, Damon, correct me if I'm wrong, it feels like UCLA, who's 32nd in KenPom, 35th in offensive efficiency, 29th in defensive efficiency, 352nd in tempo, and really strong on the offensive boards as well. It feels like they're just not going to have the firepower to match up with Arizona in this one. It feels like Mick Cronin's brand of tough, hard-nosed basketball that's principled on slow pace and defense. It feels like Arizona can beat them at their own game if they choose to do that. I think Arizona has a chance to speed UCLA up, turn them over, get out in transition. UCLA is not good in transition either. They have the least amount of fast break points per game. Not least amount, but they have 33rd percentile, which is very low. 26th percentile in percentage of points on the fast break. They do not succeed when sped up and put out in transition as well. So I kind of feel like that's where this game is going to be decided. The physicality, who can be more physical for longer, specifically in the paint. And as we get to UCLA's weaknesses and see how Arizona can take advantage of some of these, wow, I mean, that picture is
haunting.
That's a great word. Yeah, that picture is haunting. The depths of the blues of his eyes. Derek earlier compared him to a what was the
Voldemort?
Yeah, but what was the ghouls from those Harry Potter movies? The ones
Death Eaters.
Death Eaters. He kind of looks like a Death Eater.
That's Voldemort's people. What? Shoot.
I don't know. We'll figure it out. But 3-point scoring and defense, one of UCLA's weak points for certain in this one. They do not shoot the ball from 3 at a very efficient rate. Dementors. He looks like a Dementor.
I mean, I think he looks like Voldemort stealing the life of somebody and in their life force right in front of our eyes. Like this is like Goblet of Fire. Like he's being reborn right in front of us.
Yeah.
It's horrifying.
Yeah, it is horrifying. Let's get it off the screen. They can't shoot from 3 or really defend the 3. If you look back at the first 3 games that they've had, the first 2 opponents, in being Eastern Washington and Pepperdine, did not shoot like stellar percentages from 3. But when you kind of look at the numbers, the analytics do not like their 3-point defense, nor do they like the 3-point offense. They are 36th percentile in 3-point percentage, 33rd percentile in 3-point attempts per game. So they're not attempting a lot, and when they do attempt, they're missing. So their offense is heavily predicated on how they can score, I would say, from the mid-range and from the key. If you look at their shot chart, Damon, I thought this was interesting. They attempt the majority of their shots in the paint from outside of the restricted area, from outside of the rim. They only attempt 20.3% of their shots from at the rim and 28% of their shots in the paint. So combined 48%, over half of that is outside of the restricted area. It feels like once they get 2 feet in the paint, they're content making a decision to either float it or, go for some sort of, kick out as well. So I kind of feel like Arizona can take advantage of them in the 3-point area in this game. We've talked about how efficient Arizona has been as an overall offense. Part of that is their 3-point offense as well, Damon. So do you think that Arizona can actually shoot some threes in this one? Do you think we see some threes from Arizona in this one?
I mean, yeah, it certainly feels like something that, could be, a big plus in Arizona's direction, right? Because UCLA is certainly not going to light it up from the perimeter. So if Arizona can win the 3-point battle, that goes a long way, right? But I think the rebounding battle in particular is going to be massive.
Yes.
Arizona, especially when you're talking about 2 teams that play like significantly different styles of pace. Whoever wins the rebounding battle is going to be able to dictate the pace in large part. And I think Arizona typically beats up teams on the rebounding battle, even teams like Florida who have really tall and great front courts. Can they do it here today and then force it in transition, get out on the run? That's going to be something that the yin and yangs of these two teams is so insane.
Yes.
Like it always is every time that UCLA and Arizona match up when it's Mick Cronin versus Tommy Lloyd, has been in basically every matchup. And I don't have the record right in front of my face, but I feel like we've gotten the better end of Mick Cronin. Especially when I think about how last year really just felt like a choke job rather than UCLA like getting the better of Arizona. It felt like we just like completely fumbled it, right? And that game was for the winning in blowout fashion, and you completely blew it like with atonable mistakes, things that easily could have just not happened, not by you just getting outplayed by that other team or outworked. So I don't know. I feel confident. I like our play style over their play style. Obviously from a visual standpoint, obviously from an entertainment standpoint and being a fan of the teams, but even just from like how they fit against each other, I think it's easier for us to try to work it in transition than it is for them to slow it down.
I like that.
That makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. And I also think when we're talking about play style, I didn't necessarily get my graphic for the keys to the game, but you're touching on one of my keys to the game here, which honestly you're touching on both of them. Paint touches is number one, and I think that we're talking about dictating the pace of this game, and one way for Arizona to do that is force UCLA's front court to physically guard the whole game. That is going to be a great way to exhaust Tylr Bilodeau, exhaust Eric Daly, exhaust Xavier Booker. And I think, obviously, with their lack of three-point offense and defense, the paint touches are going to have open shots for Ivan Karchenkov, for Anthony Del Orso, for Dwayne Aristode on the kickout opportunities as well. And you talk about, rebounding the ball and kind of stealing away extra possessions in this one, winning on the margins. Turnover margin is going to be one you have to win in this one. With a team that plays as slow of a pace and is as efficient from two as UCLA is, you cannot give them extra opportunities to score on you in this basketball game, especially with how physical this game is going to be. Yeah. You want to be the team that makes the other team guard physically for 40 minutes. That's what you want to do. You do not want to be in the position of chasing Donovan Dent around, chasing Sky Clark around. You have to keep them in front of you, and on the other end, the ball has to continuously be moving, right? UCLA is not a team that stops passes. They allow a ton of assists. So if you keep the ball moving and you keep screening, keep rolling, keep flowing the offense, Karchenkov is going to be a huge part of this. His backdoor cuts as well. I think that definitely leads to Arizona getting a W in this one. And I mentioned how they can't turn the ball over. UCLA is 74th percentile in points off turnovers. They're not good in the fast break, as I outlined earlier. So if you can take care of the ball, it feels like UCLA is going to struggle to get extra possessions in this one, and it makes it a lot easier for Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all about it. I'm all about it. And then also, Damon.
Let's move into the next one. That's more where I was going to.
The transition game, we've touched on it. They cannot score in transition. That is not what their offense is predicated on. Donovan Dent, though, during his time in New Mexico, is a player that is extremely capable of running out in transition, running a fast-paced offense. And Mick Cronin has spoken about how at times he thinks, okay, maybe I got to start catering my offense to this Donovan Dent guy a little bit more. He seems pretty damn good. And I think that you're going to start, by the end of the year, I think you'll see a much more mix of Mick Cronin ball and Donovan Dent ball. I think it's going to be majority slow, knockout, drag out kind of Mick Cronin ball. But every once in a while, you're going to see that speed kick up, and it's going to be Donovan Dent style basketball, right?
I love that. More of that. I think in this game, we want that, personally.
Yeah, because that's Arizona ball.
There is no point guard in the country, I think, that is geared to defend transition point guards than Jaden Bradley.
Yes.
And honestly, like, this is the perfect segue into this topic. I think Jaden Bradley has something to prove in this game because, like I have been talking about for a majority of this offseason, analytics sites, national analysts, everybody basically that is a college basketball fan has been overvaluing transfers and their impact that they will have from lower level conferences making the jump into higher level conferences. And that is not to say that Donovan Dent will not have a great season. I think he will be fantastic this year for UCLA. But when Jaden Bradley, a guy like Jaden Bradley, averages 12 points per game at a program like Arizona, where he is clearly not the focal point of the offense, and the eye test is what it is. If you actually watch Arizona games and then you devalue him because he is not taking the most shots in the entire world versus a guy who's averaging 20 at New Mexico because he's at freaking New Mexico. If Jaden Bradley was at New Mexico instead of Alabama and Arizona in his career, yeah, I think he'd have a few more shot attempts per game. I think he'd be scoring a couple more points per game. I think Jaden Bradley in this game shows people why he's better than a guy who transferred in from New Mexico.
I love that. I also kind of, in a weird alternate universe, maybe where Jaden Bradley didn't end up at Alabama in the first place, Jaden Bradley getting coached by a Patino sounds awesome. Does it not? Like, he's a New York guy, like East Coast toughness, pass first point guard, defense next kind of point guard. So yeah, you bring up the potential of him, like if you swap him with Donovan Dent at like New Mexico last year, it feels like Jaden Bradley is incredible in that system. Just as incredible as he was at Arizona, but statistically more impressive was your point. We move in.
As Sam put it, and Sam texted me this, and I apologize, Sam. I don't believe I responded to that text, but which Kevin can attest to. I'm just the worst texter in the entire world. But JT Toppin, like being undervalued as compared to like a Yaxel Landenberg. It was ridiculous. Ridiculous. JT Toppin is an All-American in the Big 12. A guy who averages the same amount of points as him at UAB is not going to all of a sudden just go to Michigan and be exactly as good. That's not how this sport works. It never has. So I don't understand this idea that now it's a program thing. It's a logo thing, Kevin. I think it's like we like Dusty May. He plays the media game really well. He goes on all the big national media shows and he does Pardon My Take and he's funny and we like him. So that means that he's definitely this guy who he's putting all of his NIL money into. He has to be the best. JT Toppin already is the best. I watch him. I watch him in the conference that you guys talk about do it. So it's like I just need people to stop doing the overvaluing of the lower level transfers. Jaden Bradley's going to have something to prove in this game because of it, in my opinion, and I think he gets the better end of Donovan Dent.
He's also only 20 points away from 1,000, Damon. So if he does, if he really stands on business and he emulates what he did against Florida, it could be a real milestone making kind of a night for Jaden Bradley. UCLA's third most notable weakness, their depth. If you look at UCLA's roster, and maybe I'm wrong on this, I feel like realistically, notable players, Damon, like guys that actually are going to impact UCLA's season, they're like 7 deep. 1, Donovan Dent, 2, Sky Clark, 3, Jamar Brown, 4, Tylr Bilodeau, 5, Xavier Booker, Trent Perry, and Eric Daly. Steven Jamerson, Brandon Williams, Eric Freeney, they don't really move me. And Arizona is legitimately like 9 deep in a real way. And not like 9 deep like, oh, I kind of like what the 9th guy brings to the table. It's like, no, on any other roster, it feels like our 9th guy might get a start, right? And so I feel like Arizona owns them in depth going into this game. And I think UCLA just doesn't have as nearly deep of a roster as Arizona does. How are you seeing the depth component of this one?
Yeah, it does feel that way. It seems like UCLA maybe has some of the upper end kind of talent to match in Arizona, but that they don't have, you're right, those back end guys. You're telling me that Steven Jamerson II is not some world-beating player?
No,
What?
I am not telling you that.
Dude, he averaged 7 for USD last year. I thought we talked about this. That means he was going to double it at UCLA.
Yeah, it's what Pigeon says in the chat. Damon, didn't you know transferring magically grants you +10 to every stat? And he's not talking attribute. He's talking counting stats.
Essentially, they have Steven Jamerson is CD Gay, but that's our third center. That's kind of the levels to which in depth that we're talking about. And I think UCLA is a very good team. They have a lot of talent, but they're not Arizona talented. They don't have Dwayne Aristode as their 8th man. Right. That right then and there is going to put Arizona in from a depth perspective above almost every single team that they play. They have a guy who's a top 50 recruit as their 8th man, and you're just going to have to deal with it.
Straight up, flat out, UCLA is 7 rotation guys deep legitimately. Arizona has 6 guys that were listed in the NBA draft top 100's most recent list.
Wow.
It's flat. That's just the basics of it.
That's crazy.
That is the basics of it. And as we get into some of those players to kind of wrap up this preview from the Arizona side, Damon, I want to kind of go through briefly a couple bullet points of each player and kind of what you and I are wanting to see from them in this game. I'll go ahead and start, and then I'll throw it your direction, right? Mo Krivas. I want to see him be strong on the boards in this one. Borderline dominant. It's not really his calling card to be dominant on the boards. His calling card is to be impactful in kind of other ways, like rim protection and overall presence under the basket. But I think in this game, as strong as UCLA is under the basket, rebounding the ball, specifically on offense, you need Krivas to be every bit of 7'2" and play like it in this one, because UCLA is going to allow offensive or defensive rebound opportunities for Krivas because they're not the most efficient shooting team. So it's about him actually taking those opportunities and looking like a 7'2" monster. What do you want to see from Krivas, Damon?
Yeah, I think that's a solid one. Not to just piggyback on yours, but I think the defensive rebounding aspect, especially with them having a strength on the offensive rebounding component of things, that's going to be extremely important. I'd also like to see him maybe take a couple free throws in this one.
Yeah.
Like let's force some foul trouble on UCLA's bigs, because I don't think that they have anybody that really no one has anybody that can guard Krivas. You know, if he's doing his thing, it's all about whether he makes the bucket or not, right? Like a lot of people aren't really putting him off his spot or contesting it in a crazy way. He's 7'2". Maybe let's force the issue a little bit. Let's get low. Let's be physical.
Yeah, and then moving on to a couple of other members of this front court. And there's one thing that you mentioned that I think is genius, and I want to key in on it there, is the getting UCLA's front court in foul trouble piece, right? Because one of those bullet points I had for Koa Peat, which I think applies to Tobe Awaka and Mo Krivas, but I was looking at Pete specifically because the amount of opportunities he's going to have with the ball in his hands at the top of the key to maybe drive and force a foul, is force Tylr Bilodeau or whoever Koa Peat's matchup is going to be at the time into 1 to 2 fouls in the first 5 minutes of the game. If they can get to that first media timeout with a couple fouls on some UCLA bigs, it puts pressure on Mick Cronin. It puts pressure on UCLA's bench, which we've already talked about it. They don't have a very deep bench. So I think Arizona, if they can use that physicality to their advantage in this one and force some fouls in the direction of the bigs of UCLA, it could be a long night for the Bruins. Tobe Awaka, though, I want him to be the rebounder in the game. Mo Krivas, I want to see him try to be a dominant rebounder, but like I said, we know that's not his game to rack in 17 boards in a game that really has a super high level of play. I'm not saying he can't do it. I want him to do it. But if he's not going to do it, Tobe Awaka has to be the rebounder in this game. He has to lead the game in rebounds. He has to be physically dominant, because we know that Mo Krivas can be kind of Jekyll and Hyde with his intensity out there. He does show up for the bigger games, and this is one of the bigger games, but we know Tobe Awaka does that night in, night out, so I want to see it again in this one. Anything for Tobe Awaka?
Nothing to add. Let's move on to Koa Peat, who
yes.
I really like what you have in here for this. Have that night one attitude.
Yes.
I think that, obviously he hasn't needed to do what he's needed to do against Florida in the NAU and Utah Tech games, right? But we saw what that looked like when the primary focus of the offense was get the ball to Koa Peat and get the hell out of his way.
Yep.
Open up the interior of that defense and allow him to either force fouls or dunk on people. And I think that that's what you need in this game. You mentioned how important the physical component of this game is going to be, especially with how contrasting the play styles are, like in terms of one team wanting to slow it down, one team wanting to speed it up. I think if you can win the rebounding battle, just give it to Koa Peat a million times in a row and spam him driving at the basket over and over and over again, because physically I don't see a way in which they can stop that.
Yeah, that was very well said. Moving on to our backcourt here of Bradley and Burries. Jaden Bradley has to keep the ball moving on offense. We should not see him have to be like the focal point of Arizona's offense in this one from a scoring perspective. We know he's capable of doing that because of what he did against Florida. I know Koa Peat had 3 more points, but 27 is still a substantial amount. I think what I want from him the most is for this to not come down to Jaden Bradley putting up 25-plus points, right? I want him to be able to facilitate the offense, to move the ball, to be that point general or court general that we know that he could be. Most importantly, though, offensively, I want him to relieve pressure when it starts to build up for Arizona in this game. And I want him to do that by getting downhill, forcing fouls, getting creative layups like he's known to do. Because, Damon, we know that in a game against a team like UCLA that's going to be as physical and as slow-paced as they are, there's going to be moments where Arizona doesn't get a field goal for a minute and a half, and UCLA is kind of rolling, and you start feeling that real game pressure of, okay, here comes that run that we knew they would make. If it can be upon Jaden Bradley to kind of release that valve, release some pressure for Arizona, go get an easy 2, maybe an and 1 as well. I think that's going to be huge in this one for Jaden Bradley. What do you want to see from our fearless leader?
From Jaden Bradley, I want to see good late game execution. I want to see the antithesis of what I saw last year. I want to see nothing close to what I saw on night 1 versus Florida. When it gets down to the end of the game, and UCLA, who is a team with insanely good defensive principles instilled into them, starts pressing, I assume that their press is going to be pretty darn good. And I need Jaden Bradley to be able to handle that. And it's not all on Jaden Bradley, obviously, but he is the leader. He is the senior point guard. Like, he is going to be the guy who we're trying to get the ball in his hands, right? And what I don't want to see from Jaden Bradley is him just the sprinting with his head down up the court, right? Like, I need for him to be able to react to the situations out there, not fall over on an inbounds like he did against Florida on that one. Like, not to say that it's all on him, like I already said, but it's just he is going to be the person that is going to have to wear that, as well as Tommy Lloyd, if something at the end of the game happens again, right? And so I just want to see good late game execution. I want to feel comfortable with Jaden Bradley, ball in his hands when he's being pressed in particular, to be honest.
I love that. And like you mentioned, with the experience factor also earlier, these UCLA players have thousands of hours of running a press, thousands of hours of a half-court trap, thousands of hours of a full-court trap, and they're being coached by Mick Cronin. So even players like Trent Perry, who doesn't have the most actual in-game experience, only being a sophomore, I think he knows what a trap and a press looks like playing under Mick Cronin. It's going to be really important to have Jaden Bradley. That's another area where, like, he can relieve pressure for you, right? Like, that pressure builds up, and getting across half court's a good way to relieve that if you're Arizona as well. So
yeah, and on top of that, I think, UCLA is a team that if they are down 10 points in the first half, they're going to start pressing. Like, this is not just a late game execution thing. I think the press could happen in the middle of the game for sure. It could just be thrown at you at a random time from a Mick Cronin team. So, yeah, I want to see good execution late game, good execution against the press in particular. What about Brayden Burries, Kevin?
Yeah, just a couple more players with some bullet points here. I feel like this one's kind of important. Not saying that it's like make or break for Brayden Burries, but it feels like the player that he's going to be in January and February is going to be night and day from the player he is today. But I would like to see a couple steps forward on the defensive side of things. I would really like to see him be able to keep Sky Clark off the three-point line, because Trent Perry, he shoots some threes, but he's not the most efficient three-point shooter so far this year. I think you'll see that with most of UCLA's players. The more efficient ones are on super low volume, and some of the less efficient ones are the ones that are actually shooting the ball the most. Sky Clark, though, shooting 40% on decent volume so far through 3 games. Keeping him off the three-point line, staying attached to his man defensively. Overall, I just want to see good defensive intangibles from Brayden Burries to at least start this game. I'm not saying he has to come out and play like Marcus Smart for 40 minutes, but I would like to see him stick to his guy a little bit more and navigate screens just a little bit better, match that intensity and physicality of UCLA.
I love it, Kevin. I think that's got to be the point of emphasis from a Brayden Burries perspective. We've seen him get beat off the dribble by guys at Utah Tech. And it's like we need that to be fixed, because that's not Arizona standard, Tommy Lloyd standard of defense. And it's going to be a lot different versus the UCLA guards of the world. They have much more talented players. Can Brayden Burries hold his own on the defensive end? I think is going to be important. Now let's talk about your guy, Dwayne Aristode, who had his best game of his Arizona career, his breakout game, 6 of 9 from 3, Kevin, career high in points. What do you want to see versus UCLA from Mr. Aristode?
From our leader of the Aristodians, I would like to see a continued attitude shift, right? And this is what Dwayne Aristode had to say.
The prophet, if you will.
Exactly. This is what he had to say, the man himself, in relation to his mindset shift.
I had every opportunity presented to me, It's just a change of mindset. Obviously we can make excuses that I didn't play a whole year and trying to get my rhythm back, but, enough of that. Coach wanted me to be aggressive, so it was time I start being aggressive.
He said we can make excuses for him all we want, and he can make excuses for himself all he wants about not being able to play basketball for 16 months, per Brayden Burries Muse, who went out there and did the math. It's a long time out of basketball for Dwayne Aristode, right? And coming back in at this level, night one against Florida, and then overall you're looking and gearing up for Big 12 basketball. It's a high level to just come into, right? And I think Dwayne Aristode, what I want to see from him, and I think it's what we started to see at the end of that Northern Arizona game, is he's just going to be more aggressive, be more decisive. That's what I kind of want from Dwayne Aristode, to bring out the player that we've seen leading up to Arizona, the guy that makes those good .5 decisions and is able to get downhill or able to shoot the ball, and he's going to defend as well. So overall, I just want to see him continue to be more aggressive, as Tommy Lloyd not so softly told him to do in the middle of that NAU game.
Love it. I think from my perspective, in what I want from Dwayne Aristode, obviously I don't expect 6 of 9 from 3 every single night, but that's going to be a consistent part of his shot diet. He was 6 for 10 from the field. He was 6 for 9 from 3. I think a lot of Dwayne Aristode games, we're going to be seeing a good 60%, 70% of his shots be from beyond the arc. And when that's your job, when that's your role, you're going to need to be efficient in the process. I'm not going to hold it against him if he goes 0 for 4, but I want to see him take those shots. I want to see it look as consistent as it did against NAU, because I thought that the form looked fantastic versus NAU, and especially when he was getting onto that right side, right? Like he was getting into that one particular spot, and he kept shooting from that one spot on the right side. Get into that spot more, please. Like find
Live
yourself
on that spot.
Find yourself in that exact spot on the court, and I will be happy. I want to see Dwayne Aristode just continue to take those threes, continue to have that steady shot diet from beyond the arc, and just be efficient in the process all season long, really, because along with that, I said last time from Dwayne Aristode, I wanted to see maybe a flash defensive play or two. That's always going to be the case.
Yeah.
But what's also always going to be the case is that 3-and-D ability and the perimeter shooting. And let's just get on that right side of the court and just keep letting it fly, my guy. That's what I'm down with.
Speaking of let it fly, the last player that I had some notes and expectations for in this one was Delly, ADO, Anthony Del Orso. I need him to hit some threes in this one. I know that's like his whole, modus operandi. It's like why he's out there. But I think the timely threes that he can present in this matchup with UCLA, we talk about relieving pressure. I feel like there's going to be a lot of moments in this game where Delly has opportunities to make the fans go, okay, the lead has gone from 2 to 5. Or, okay, the lead has been increased from 8 to 11. Like, there can be some big buckets in this game for Delly, and we know UCLA struggles to defend those threes. So I think the increased range from him actually being able to be out there longer because of his increased, strength and conditioning, his increased defensive aptitude. I'm very interested to see what type of level Delly has in this one, because it feels like he's not quite letting go of that starting spot in a good way, right? It feels like ever since he lost that official starting role to Ivan Karchenkov that he's worked even harder, dare I say. And I feel like it's kind of adding to his daily grind of just wanting to earn that spot back. And if you're getting a Delly that's trying to earn a starting spot back from Ivan Karchenkov, you're going to get a pretty damn good Delly. So I'm excited to see what he can bring in this one. And hopefully it's some timely threes.
Yeah, I'm going to go with what Bill said here to an extent, and I'll expand upon it. Take smart threes, not the Luka step back off balance shots he's put up. For me, for Delly, it's finding that balance. I tweeted in the last game that he's just so much more complete offensively. Like, I see him making reads, off the dribble and finding guys on the perimeter, and I love it. There's also situations where he's getting a mismatch and he's taking a guy down low and showing a little bit of post moves, right? Like showing his strength. I think that kind of stuff is fantastic. Show us the growth in your game, but don't overdo it, right? Don't get outside of what you can actually accomplish. And not to say that that's something that he has consistently done all season, but I think that there are times where that happens here and there. In this one, let's show us the stuff that you've grown, the parts of your game you've grown, but don't get outside of yourself in the process. And so yeah, no like don't take a contested off the dribble three.
Yeah.
But if you want to take a mid-range jumper where you found a spot and you crossed a guy up, which we didn't see a lot of last year, I'm all for it. So yeah, just stay within yourself, but also show us kind of that improvement in your game. In the chat, it was Bill, who asked what we thought about Ivan Karchenkov, who of course didn't have a great game last game, scored 0 points. You know, it wasn't obviously the end of the world, and it's not like he's like forcing shots, but I have thought at times that, you know, Karchenkov looks really good in spurts, and then he'll skunk a finish. Like his drive to the rim will look unbelievable, like an NBA player, and then he just won't get that finishing touch right on the layup. What do you want to see from Mr. Karchenkov in this one?
You know, honestly, for just him to keep playing the game he's been playing so far this season, like that's mostly why he wasn't on my list of bullet points and thoughts. Mostly because I think the shots just simply didn't fall for him in the last one. I think he did other stuff still well. And obviously, I'm looking for him to just contribute on the margins in this one. I'm not looking for him to be the star, go get you a double-double again. But if he does, hey, I'm not going to complain about an Ivan Karchenkov double-double against UCLA. It's probably a good indicator of success. However, I'm looking for him to play well within the offensive flow in this one, find some easy buckets off of backdoor cuts. I think UCLA has a tendency to fall asleep. I know they haven't played anybody worth staying up for yet so far this season, but I do think Ivan Karchenkov is going to be able to get himself at least 6 easy points in this one, just off of being the most active player on the offensive end of the court. So those are kind of my thoughts. I think he's doing really well so far this year. Obviously good enough to get the starting nod as a freshman. So he's got to keep playing his game.
Yeah.
I hope the shots fall in this one. So
I think physically he looks every bit the part of an insane college basketball player. I just think that he needs to let the game slow down a little bit for him. I think that there are times where he does make an insane move to the basket and he's like, oh, I gotta finish it now, and then that's probably why he's screwing up the finish, right? Like I don't think anyone should be worried about Ivan Karchenkov. The fact that Tommy Lloyd has trusted him with the starts in and of itself is enough for me to have full trust in what we got going on that side of things. And yeah, I think that just continuing to do what he does, not changing his play style and letting the game come to him is, going to be the best case scenario for Arizona. That's what I think everybody, right? That's in the rotation for the most part.
Yeah, I think so.
The expectations or wants, needs to see against UCLA, Arizona versus UCLA tomorrow night means everything. We'll be going live for a pregame show 30 minutes prior to the opening tip. We'll be doing watching the game alongside with you guys. Yes, Bill, we will be doing a watch along. And then post-game show right after the game is over, about 10 minutes after the clock hits 0. Kevin and I cannot wait to be giving you coverage all day long tomorrow, which, of course, will start with Cam Williams and his decision at 12:45 Arizona time. Kevin, are we hearing anything about Cam Williams right now, a day out? Any sort of quick primer that you want to tell the people?
I have not been able to. We have yet to get another. Like right now, this crystal ball that is to Duke is one writer who has had Duke sources in the past, is pretty accurate, right? So you could argue both ways on that. You could say, well, it's only one prediction at 60% confidence, blah, blah, blah. But it's also a guy who has announced Duke commitments in the past, and he's 16 for 16 so far this year with his predictions.
Who is it and when?
Let me pull up. Let me see if I still had it in my clipboard. I do. His name is Colby Giacquebueno. Tried my best. Giacquebueno. He's made 182 crystal ball predictions for 24/7 Sports and has correctly predicted 164 of those. That results in 90% accuracy for his career. In this 2026 cycle, though, he's 16 for 16, and one of his predictions was for Duke to land 5-star combo guard Jordan Smith, which they did. So, or at least I believe they did. So, yeah, he should be pretty accurate so far, but there is still a chance. There's some grumblings that Arizona has yet to lose this race. So it could come down to the wire. So tune into our emergency pod tomorrow and tune into Cam Williams' commitment at 12:45. And it should be hopefully some exciting news. But if it's not, we'll get him next time. You know what I mean? It's okay.
I will say he also did do this 4 days ago on November 10th at a time in which it seemed like Duke was the answer. And since then, of course, we've updated you guys on this show that it feels like Arizona is maybe building a little bit of momentum here and making this more murky than we initially thought. So Colby, Mr. Gia Cubeno, we can go ahead and say that he probably was hearing a lot of what we were hearing in terms of, Duke being the spot for Cameron Williams at that time. Not to say he's wrong either. Maybe he does know something. He's also a Maryland insider, so it's not like he's a Duke insider. There's a lot of varying parts there, and it seems like Arizona does have a shot. So, guys, 12:45, Cameron Williams, 5-star, would be the best player in Arizona's class this season. Arizona not going after anybody that is above Cameron Williams, who is a top 5 player in this 2026 class. We'll be talking about it right afterwards, breaking it down, reacting to the decision, whether it's Duke and we just need to do a therapy session, hold hands and cry and maybe drink some Three Amigos tequila to wash it all away, or
that sounds good.
Whether or not it's Arizona and it's party time.
Now that
and
sounds great.
We got 2 Camerons linked up, ready to take over college basketball next season, and we got Three Amigos tequila to celebrate. But whether or not he chooses Arizona or not, Kevin and I are going to be live on this very channel. Make sure that you guys subscribe to the channel, PHNX Sports. Rate and review on your favorite podcasting platform. Like this video if you haven't done so already. And, of course, we appreciate everybody, especially who is here in the chat, helping contribute to the conversation. You guys help us make this show so great. If you are not in the chat and you're just a watcher, we appreciate you. But feel free to hop in the chat and hang out with us along for the ride. You can follow my guy Kevin at KevoPost. You can follow me at Damon Dog, that's DAWG, and you can follow us at PHNX_Wildcats, except for TikTok, where we're at AZ Wildcats Pod. Follow us on Instagram because we are popping, people. We got a 400,000 view Bryce James Instagram reel just going ballistic right now. And of course, Kevin and I might be asking for raises in the process because of Bryce James and what he brings to the table for this fine podcast.
I could use one.
Yeah, for sure.
It'd be nice.
For sure.
Buy some more trading cards. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's going to be a big day tomorrow, Kevin. Big day tomorrow. Has the opportunity to be one of the best days in Arizona basketball history, bringing in a stud like Cameron Williams and getting a win over your rival in the process. And we're going to be live all day long. Let's hope. Let's pray. Let us pray that this is the day that we all hope and dream it could be. Follow my guy Kevin, follow me, follow us, and we'll catch you tomorrow right after Cameron Williams makes his decision right around 1 p.m. Until then, peace out, bear down.
And go Cats. Ever heard of a twin cam engine? Because I have.
We all silly like the mayor.